Today I'd like to take a look at Dylan Thomas's well-known poem "And Death Shall Have No Dominion." It was written in 1933, and Thomas was about 19 at the time, so he wasn't very old. The title is "And Death Shall Have No Dominion," and that is also the first and last line of each of the three stanzas. The poem has no particular verse form. It's what we would call free verse, although there is a kind of rough structure with each verse having a certain number of lines and the lines having varying length. But we can say that it's in free verse. There is no particular set verse structure to it. Maybe the most interesting thing to say to begin with is that it is a reference to Paul's epistle to the Romans, and death shall have no dominion, but it's a very unique interpretation of that, because Paul meant one thing and it looks like Dylan Thomas means something entirely different. Paul is talking about the Christian faith and how death has no dominion. Death cannot succeed in killing people, because eventually they will be resurrected, and if they believe in Jesus. It seems that Dylan Thomas did not really go along with this even at 19. Thing is, he'd been brought up on the Bible like so many Welsh people are, but he never seems to have really taken to traditional religion, traditional Christianity. It was the sound of the Bible that he really liked, and all the great images in it. And here he takes one of the strongest images, and death shall have no dominion, and gives it a slant that is suitable for himself. Dylan Thomas seems to have believed in some kind of pantheistic survival, where everything is one, and so no one can truly die, because when you die you just join the whole. Individual survival might be something entirely different, and that's something which he doesn't really say a lot about, and probably never thought a lot about. He's got no particular faith in the Christian heaven and survival after death. What he believes in is this union of nature, and that when a person dies, they will go back and join nature, and so they can never really die, because they just take a different form and are still a part of it. But whether they have any individual consciousness or not, well, that's a different question. So let's just read it through quickly. And death shall have no dominion, and death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be one, with the man in the wind and the west moon. When their bones are picked clean, and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the seas, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. Under the windings of the sea, they lying long shall not die windily, twisting on racks when sinews give way, strapped to a wheel, yet they shall not break. Faith in their hands shall snap in two, and the unicorn evils run them through. Split all ends up, they shan't crack, and death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. No more may gulls cry at their ears, or waves break loud on the seashores. Where blew a flower, may a flower no more lift its head to the blows of the rain. Though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies, break in the sun till the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion. Well, that sense of pantheism definitely comes through here, which is typical of Dylan Thomas. Something else that's typical of Dylan Thomas is the piling of imagery, piling up of imagery, image on image. Sometimes it gives a smart new turn to a cliche, perhaps. Best way to do this is probably go through it line by line. So begins with the quote from Paul in the Bible: "Death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be one, with the man in the wind and the west moon." Okay, so they're not going to be one with Jesus. They're not going to be. They're not going to be resurrected in the Christian sense, which is a sense that the line originally comes from in the Bible. They're going to be some part of a pantheistic whole. They'll be one with the man in the wind and the west moon, after their bones are picked clean and the clean bones gone. So yeah, they're changing their format, changing their shape. They won't be humans anymore, but they'll be a part of nature, and will survive in that sense, that Earth has gone back to Earth, and they still survive in nature. So he continues the same kind of idea, really, just typical Dylan Thomas, piling image on image on image to make a point over and over again, which is what he does a lot. There's not really. It's rather similar to the force through the green fuse in this way, a simple idea which he then piles image on image up to express, and it's interesting insofar as he can find images that are new and add something, and it's a lot to do with the sound, so it's very bombastic. He takes his tone from the opening line, and death shall have no dominion. It sounds triumphant and certain, and that's where he takes his direction from. And I think he really loves this kind of bombastic quality. It's something he took from the Bible, and also so many images from the Bible too. But the actual ideas of Christianity, he was less drawn to. So, piling up the images, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. So that gives a clue as well. So though lovers be lost, love shall not. So it looks like there is no survival for the individual lover, only for love in general, as one generation succeeds another. There's also the Dylan Thomas element of images which kind of sound good, but it's very difficult to interpret exactly what they mean. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Well, it sounds great, but difficult to know exactly what he's talking about, except in a general sense. It's obviously a part of this pantheism that he's referring to. And so it finishes, of course, on the same note: death shall have no dominion. Second stanza: and death shall have no dominion. Under the windings of the sea, they lying long shall not die windily. So, is he talking about men who died at sea, shipwrecked men, not dying windily? What does that mean? Difficult to say. It's just, again, natural imagery about people who have died and them going back to nature, basically, and it's difficult to tie down to any specific meaning. Now he moves on to instruments of torture, twisting on racks when sinews give way, strapped to a wheel, yet they shall not break. Faith in their hands shall snap in two when the unicorn evils run them through. Split all ends up, they shan't crack, and death shall have no dominion. So again, piling up of images which it's difficult to give any specific meaning to, but in general, obviously all going in the same direction about men dying and going back to nature. So here is an example of the cliche given a smart new turn. Split all ends up, they shan't crack. So all ends up is a cliche really, but he gives it sort of interesting turn here. The unicorn evils would be very difficult to give any real interpretation to at all. It's just a general kind of sequence of images, specifically seafaring images and people dying and being shipwrecked at the bottom of the sea. But in general, it's just repeating that major trope again about men die and go back to nature. And he's keeping up the triumphant tone the whole time. So he definitely liked this image and the idea of death not being in control or successful when after men die, but he wasn't able to go in the same direction with it as Paul did, or the writers of the New Testament. So let's read the final stanza. Death shall have no dominion, no more may gulls cry at their ears or waves break loud on the seashores. So there's a bit of a change here, but it's the same kind of idea. They're dead, they can't hear these things anymore, they don't have any real consciousness in a human sense anymore. They've gone back to nature, they've changed their shape, their form, they don't have individual consciousness now. So, the things are happening in the world, birds are crying, waves are breaking on the seashores, flowers are raising their heads, but they can't hear it. They're still a part of nature, however, they don't have, it seems, individual consciousness any longer. Though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies, break in the sun till the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion. So they be dead, they be mad and dead as, though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies. Again, just natural imagery. Difficult to say exactly what he's talking about. Like I said before, it's typical Thomas, just piling image on image on image to emphasize what is essentially quite a simple point, that he believes that when men die, they go back to nature, take another form, and in that sense, they're not really dead because their substance, their earth, has returned to earth and has taken new shape, new forms. However, he doesn't seem to believe that any kind of individual consciousness survives. It might seem a rather bleak point, but he's also got to keep up the triumphant sound of the original image, and death shall have no dominion. And so he does that by emphasizing his pantheistic view of life and death, that nobody truly dies because the stuff of which they are made is recycled. I think that Thomas really just took an image, took a liking to an image and ran with it. And especially at this age, he was only about 19 when he wrote it. He wasn't probably thinking too deeply about death at that time. He's just thinking about how great an image it was, and trying to give examples of other triumphant sounding images. Although it's certainly noteworthy that he didn't seem to have any particular Christian faith, and he naturally tended towards an oblique and bleak pantheism. But it's the images are memorable. Some are better than others. Some of them are a little bit hit and miss, though they be mad and dead as nails. Well, dead as nails is a cliche, but I'm not sure if he's given it a smart new turn or it's just remains a cliche. If it's a cliche, he hides it very well. So he has this ability to pile up the images, and just by the sound of the words and the alliteration and the assonance and the frequency of the images to pound the reader on the head and just almost stun the senses and make it sound really triumphant and really ecstatic, you can say. But what lies beneath is actually a rather bleak vision, perhaps, although I believe at this age, 19, he was really just enamored of the image itself and just wanted to make other images that also sounded triumphant, and he put them all together in a way that he thought sounded good, and it did, because he was a fine poet even at this age. The other things about the kind of philosophy behind it can be inferred, really, and I don't think it was something that he was thinking about a lot when he wrote the poem. It's a good poem. It's not a great poem. It's not as good as the Force Through the Green Fuse or some of his other better poems. Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, for example. Light Breaks Where No Sun Shines. But it's an early poem with a lot of promise and tells you a lot about Dylan Thomas, specifically his tendency to come up with a fairly simple idea here, that man returns to nature and his substance is recycled, if you like, and taking that idea and just repeating it over and over again by the repetition of image upon image upon image, which hopefully and usually in Thomas's case, at least in his best poetry, are memorable and make you kind of forget the fact that he's not actually developing the poem very much or developing the ideas in the poem very much. So I think those are my essential ideas about this famous poem and memorable poem, and I hope you found them helpful.